For the limited inventory, we're going to use a simple example that we can only collect a certain amount of points or objects within this scene. So we first need to create our objects. We go to our sprites folder, right click, go to create, sprites, and select an appropriate shape. We'll call this point. Now we're going to drag it into our scene. We want our player to be able to collide with this and collect it. So we're going to start by adding a collider by going to Add Component, search Collider, and select the most appropriate option. We want our player to be able to pick these up, but not for them to block our player's movement. So we can do this simply by making the collider a trigger. We're going to select the Is Trigger box and check it's true. This allows the computer to detect the collision, but it doesn't block our player's movement in any way. We need to create a tag so that we know what object that we're checking for. So we go to Tag with the point selected, Add Tag, click the plus, and call this Point. We select our point object again, and we want to assign it by going to Tag and selecting Point. We're going to change the color to identify to the player that we can pick this up or that it's different to other objects in the scene. So in our sprite renderer, we'll click the color and select what you wish. We want to be able to reuse this asset again and again, so we're going to make it a prefab. We'll go back to our assets folder, right click, create, and folder. We'll call this prefab. We'll drag our point object into this folder, and you'll see now that it's turned blue with a blue square next to it. This means that we can drag this out, and you'll see that it retains the information of every other one, so that they're all yellow, they all have a collider that's a trigger and a point tag. And if I were to change this in our master, in our project, for instance the color, then it applies to everyone in the scene. Now we need to access our player script to enable us to pick these up. So we'll go to our player, and we can either double click in the inspector or go to our scripts folder and double click to open. So in our script, we have our variables. We've got our void start method, which runs at the beginning of the game, and our void update method, which runs every frame. We need to add in a new variable, however, to count the points that we've created. We need to create a new variable, however, to count the points that we've collected. We're going to make it public so we can check in game when we test our mechanic. So we'll go on a new line below our boolean. We'll make a public integer by typing int, and we'll call this score. Now we scroll down and we need a new method below our update, so we can enter it a few lines below, but always maintaining above this final bracket. We'll type void and on trigger enter 2D. You can hit enter to autocomplete, and you'll see that it will feed into this a collision object that we've collided with. Now there's two very similar methods, on collision enter 2D and on trigger enter 2D. And because we ticked the box on our point, to make it a trigger, we need to make sure we're using on trigger enter 2D in order to register the connection. So first we'll check whether it's the right object by going if the collision, so this object that it's feeding in and detecting, the game object it's attached to, has a tag that's equal to the value of point to match the tag that we've just created. And all we want to do first is to make our score plus equal 1. What this does is it takes the current value of score and adds a value of 1 to it. So if we hit Ctrl S, go back to Unity and select our player, we can now see the score in our inspector. We'll press play, and now when we move through the points, the score goes up. But we want our points to be removed when we pick them up. So press play again, go back to the script, and one last step in here, we need to destroy what we've collided with. So we type destroy, collision.gameObject. So this will take the collision that we've collided with and it will delete the game object that it's attached to. So save again, go back to Unity and play the game. This time when we detect our score, it will delete the object and add 1 to our score value. To make it limited, and this will count whether you're using it for ammunition, for keys, or any other collectibles, we go back to our point and we want to add another statement into this if. So we're going to say that if the collision game object's tag is equal to point and, so to create an and so that we check for 2 conditions, we need to do Shift 7 to make the ampersand or the and sign. And we're going to say if the score is less than 2. So we'll only pick up the point object if our score is below 2. So we save with Ctrl S and go back to Unity, press play, and now when we collect them, we can no longer collect a third one because our score is equal to 2. So that condition is no longer true. This can be used in a variety of ways to add further mechanics and features to your game.